everybody out there, this is Seto, and today for you guys I'm going to be profiling for you my Yosenju deck. Yosenjus are a deck that I have been playing ever since the Secret Forces came out earlier this year, and I've been really heavily playing this deck a lot for fun ever since Cross Souls got released a couple of weeks ago, due to a new card coming out in Cross Souls being lose one turn. There's different ways you can play Yosenjus. I mean, I know they got a whole bunch of different support in the new Cross Souls set, but I really didn't find it very useful to what Yosenjus do. There's different ways you can play them, like I just said. You can play a pendulum version, you can play a stun variation of the deck, or you can play something in between. I prefer playing a stun variation of the deck, where you use things like lose a turn, lose one turn, macro, your defissure, your vanities, and other cards of that nature to stun your opponent, stop their win condition, and proceed to summon your Yosenju monsters and beat them down and wear them down and stop, kind of grind down on their resources that they can use. The one problem the Yosenjus have always had is they don't have a win condition, but they can be a very good stun-based deck. So without further ado, guys, let us get started. So first we run 3 Yosenju, 1. Yosenju, 1 is pretty much your compulsory evacuation device on wheels. When you have another Yosenju monster out on the field, you can compulse a monster from the field back to your opponent's hand. Very, very useful card in a lot of good situations. You do have to keep in mind you have 1, 2, 3. They're pretty much all Weasel brothers, if you didn't notice already. So we have 3, 1. Then we have 3, 2. 2 is pretty much the biggest, I guess you could say, Yosenju monster with 1,800 attack. Granted, you do run Fire Formation Tanky, so they all get boosts here and there. Pretty much he can attack directly, and if you have Yosenju, 3 out, when he's out, if he attacks directly, it goes through. You can get a search off with 3 and just get your Yosenju, 1, and then next turn you can go 1, 2, 3, which is really nice. But he's very useful. Then, like I just showed you guys, we run Yosenju, 3. Yosenju, 3 is pretty much, I guess you could say, your searcher for the deck. We'll talk more about Mistake later on, but yes, this is Yosenju, 3. He's the main searcher for the deck. Then we run, I guess you could say, the adopted brother, because he doesn't say, 1, 2, 3, and that is 3 Yosenju Sujik. Sujik is pretty much your honest for the deck. You usually use Sujik in a way of you normal summon him with one of the other Yosenju monsters, you beef him up to help run over bigger monsters on the field. And with Tanky, he can become like a 21 beat stick for the turn. He bounces back to your hand just like Honest. So he's very useful. You do sometimes use his Honest effect, but usually I use him just as a beat stick to get over pesky cards on the field. But yes, he's very useful as a 3 of. Then we run 2 of the Pendulum monsters. I know some people don't like these 2 Pendulum monsters, and that's Yosenju L. Some people like, if you want to run a Pendulum version, you can run Diabolk, or you can run Yosenju R, I think it is. But I usually just run Yosenju L because it helps make one of their main archetype trap cards, which is like Infernity Barrier, Yosenju Secret Moves. It makes it more of a live card. Granted, you can have this in the Pendulum Zone. It helps protect things when you're summoning from Mirror Force, Deprison, Bottomless, Torrential, things that you don't want to lose your Yosenjus over. This guy can protect it, and when you normal summon him, he can go to defensive position. You can set Yosenju Secret Moves, and on your opponent's turn, you can just activate one. Maybe, you can do some cool things. You can activate it, stop something they're doing, then go off with your Yosenjus. Plus, it gives you board presence, which is really, really nice. So I do like 2 of it. I've seen people run, just 1 of it, but I prefer 2. It's just player preference from playing this deck for a while. If you don't want to run it at all, go right ahead, but I have found 2 to be pretty good, because I do like secret moves. So the last monster we do run in the deck, guys, is the king himself, I guess you could say, 1 Thunder King Ryo. Great card, what can I say? He gives you board presence on the field, and then when he's backed up by things like macro and defissure and lose a turn and vanities, it's going to give your opponent a headache while you just keep summoning your Yosenju monsters and poking at them and doing things to them. So I do like Thunder King Ryo as a 1-of in the deck. Very, very good card. Then we run 3 Fire Formation Tenki. Tenki is definitely a staple in this deck because you have Yosenju Kama 1, 2, and 3, and then you have Sujik. They all can be searched out by Tenki. They all get a boost with Tenki. Just, what can I say, it's a good card, and it's definitely a staple in this deck. It's the Rhoda of the deck. Then we run our 3 Pod Dualities. I've heard people say, you know, I only run 2 Pod Dualities because I do sometimes special in the deck. I've seen people do that, but personally, playing this deck with lose 1 turn out nowadays, I find that I usually rarely go into the extra deck. I'm usually just stunning my opponent and then just keep summoning my Yosenjus and going off, and I'm rarely special summoning a lot. And Pod Duality just can help me think through my deck, looking for those power cards, looking for those Kamas, the Yosenju cards that I want. So I do like the 3 Pod Duality. It gives consistency, gives you some search power to look through your cards and get what you need. So I do like 3 Pod Duality because I have found that most of the time I am not really, freaking special summoning a lot. So next we run, 2 Mystical Space Typhoon. Now, you can take Mystical Space Typhoon out if you're in the mirror match, I find. It just depends upon your mirror match. Sometimes I've seen people, side in things like, I guess you could say, that will stop your trap cards because, they'll side in like Denko Sekkas and things of that nature to stop yourself. But sometimes they'll side in things like, not Royal Oppression, but I'm having a brain fart at the moment. But they'll side things in to stop you. And you can just keep the MSTs in the deck, or you can take them out to help counteract their deck. So you can take MSTs out sometimes. I find myself doing for Light Imprisoning, Dark Imprisoning Mirrors, Chaos Trap Hole, things of that nature. Because the fact of the matter is it may hurt your opponent's deck more than it will hurt you. But we'll talk more about that a little bit later on. But 2 MST just to help against Fiendish Chains and just skill drains and whatever else is out there. That 1 back row that they have, stuff of that nature. So I do like the 2 MSTs, but you can take them out to put more of a stun variation in the deck if you really want to. Then we run our 2, I guess you could say, mass removal cards. We run Regeki, blow up their field, attack with Yosenjus, and Dark Hole. I've seen people, sometimes run 2 Dark Hole, but I took the 2nd Dark Hole out for a Torrential Tribute because it's a trap, and it can surprise your opponent more. It can be a reactive thing. Instead of Dark Hole, you have to wait back till it gets back to your turn, then activate Dark Hole. But I do like the 1 Regeki and 1 Dark Hole. Then we run the 1 Book of Moon, your 1 Defissure. Pretty much usually your last one of spells you run. No Soul Charge because you do run Macro and Defissure, and most of the time your cards are not hitting the graveyard because your Yosenju monsters kind of use a, I guess you could say they use a guerrilla warfare type of technique. So they, when they come on the field, they go back to your hand and then they attack your opponent again. So it's a hit and run type of thing. Bam, 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 run away, come back again, bam, bam, bam. It's just using guerrilla tactics, and that's what Yosenjus kind of do. And that's one of the reasons I've always loved the deck, is because they use military kind of strategy and guerrilla tactics. Also, they use anti-meta type of cards, which I've always been a fan of anti-meta. But Book of Moon, versatile card, I really like it, and Defissure, just good. It can turn, along with Macro, it can turn your mirror forces into big, huge, deep prisons, I guess you could say. Then the new card out of Cross Souls that we run in the deck, we run 3 Yosenju, not Yosenju, if it was Yosenju, you could search it out, 3 lose 1 turn. Very, very good card. I luckily got these cards before they went up in price. I got them for $16, $17, I think, a piece. This card I love because I can use it in a whole bunch of different decks now, but definitely in the Yosenju deck it really shines. It stuns your opponent. It has a stumbling effect that causes them to, not be able to activate their special summon monsters effects that turn. It is a very, very powerful card, especially with Yosenjus, where just that 1 turn can help you win the game. And along with things like Macro, Defissure, Vanities, and your sideboard, when you go into your side deck, it's just such a useful card, because sometimes what you'll do is, if say they're more susceptible to Macrocosmos, if you're playing against Dark Worlds, just using it as an example, well, you can bait them out by bringing out lose 1 turn, okay? But then if they MST that lose 1 turn, then you can flip over the Vanities or the Macro and just say, ha, this is the card I baited them out. So you can bait them out instead of just, you can bait out your power cards like this, to get the cards that really hurt them against their deck. But lose one turn, it's good against pretty much any deck out there nowadays. But that's just an example. You can bait because you have, you know, pretty much 3 main deck stun type of cards. You can bait them out. So if you have like a lose one turn and a macro, and they hurt more against macro, you can bait out the I guess you say the lose one turn, they MST that. You know, makes, you know, show me that okay, they either do have an MST or they don't, and then you can maybe flip over the macro or things of that nature. So it can be very useful. Then we run 3 Yosenju secret moves. I've seen people cut this down to 1 of, 2 of. I've still seen people run 3 of it. I've seen people run none of it. So it's a card that I've seen a lot of people debate about. It is pretty much, I guess you could say, like an Infernity Barrier. The fact of the matter is that because the Yosenju monsters keep bouncing back to your hand, you can't usually activate it on your opponent's turn. But because I run Yosenju Sensu L, I find this card a lot more live, especially because I run 2 of them. So I definitely find this card to be live a lot of the time. So I do like running 3 of it. If you want to, you can take one out and run Solemn Warning, but I don't like putting Solemn Warning in the deck. Yeah, it's helpful against Denko Sekka, and I like it at the end of the day. It's a good card, but I find myself taking a lot of hits with this deck because you usually, not all the time, but sometimes, you have an open board. And yes, Mirror Force and lose one turn help out, but I like having that little bit of a life point cushion, which sometimes can be useful to help you win, you know, just what gives you that extra turn. But 3 of these cards, don't have to run 3, but if you run the Yosenju Sensu L's, maybe consider running 3. Then we run our 2 Mirror Force. With Macro and D-Fissure, this becomes somewhat of a big, huge D-Prison, just like it would be kind of, I guess you'd say, with Dark Law out in the field. So it's very, very, very nice. So 2 Mirror Force. It gives you some backup presence if you have an open board. Your opponent may try to go to OTK you because you have an open board. That's one of the problems Yosenjus have, is they don't have, you know, you keep having to reestablish board presence. But Mirror Force can be very helpful. I've seen people run 3, but 2 is all I seem to need at the end of the day. Then for a lot of one-of traps, this deck is somewhat trap heavy. I'll also mention that I was considering maybe with lose one turn, dropping that down to a, I guess you could say a 2 of lose one turn, but at the end of the day I found that 3 was really, really helping me out. So that's why I won 3 lose one turn instead of 2 lose one turn, but that's up to you. So let's go over these final one-of traps we run. You can run Solemn Warning if you want to take something out for it. Compulsory Evacuation Device is just a very versatile card, just like Book of Moon. Bottomless Trap Hole can be very useful against certain decks. Torrential Tribune, like I said earlier, I took the second Dark Hole out for the Torrential Tribune because it's a trap and it can be reactive. Macrocosmos, self-explanatory. You really don't use the graveyard in this deck that often, so it's a very powerful card. And Vanity's Emptiness, it's another stun type of card you can use in this deck. On to the extra deck, which I'll mention, guys. Really, I do not use the extra deck a lot. Honestly, sometimes I do use Krugonic Luminescent Knight, which I'll talk about in a second, more often than any of the other Exceeds. But without further ado, let's go into it. So I run 2 Lightning Chidori. You don't have to run 2 Lightning Chidori. You just sometimes can, I mean, 1 is enough. But I just run 2 because I really couldn't find, I was like, what else could I run in the extra deck? Because I really don't use the extra deck. And I found sometimes me wanting to have 2 Lightning Chidori, so I just put 2 in there for that reason. But you can swap 1 out for something else if you want to. Then we run 1 Harpy's Pet Phantasmal Dragon. This card can be useful in certain situations, so I really like the card. And some decks don't have a main out to that card. Then we run 1 Brotherhood of the Fire Fist Tiger King. This card can be useful for searching out your tankies. 1 Diamond Direwolf. This card can be used for spot removal because you do have Beast Warriors in the deck. You can pop them and keep your Diamond Direwolf and just do some cool things. Then we run 1 Bujin Kanasuchi. This card is just good in certain situations overall, so that's why I run it. Then we run, just for some generics, we run number 82 Heartland Drago, Gaga Cowboy, Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, number 103 Ragna Zero. So number 82 Heartland Drago and Gaga Cowboy over here, these pretty much are helping you go for game. Evil Swarm Exciton Knight, when all his spells blow up the field. 103 Ragna Zero, just good against certain decks, as you guys should know. Then we'll just talk about Krugonic Luminescent Knight, number 8 Dark Rebellion XYZ Dragon, Castell, the Sky Musketeer. Number 103, Silent Arc Honor's Knight. So let's talk about these guys here. So 101 and Castell are just useful against, spinning things back to the deck, absorbing things. Dark Rebellion, XYZ Dragon, just helpful getting around big monsters on the field. And Kugamic Luminescent Knight, I will admit that sometimes I do find myself going for this first turn, depending upon my hand. So let's just use a example. So say I open up with, a tanky, a Yosenju monster, whatever, and I have maybe some stun cards like a macro, a lose one turn, and maybe something else, or just a macro and a lose one turn. Sometimes I'll just go directly for the Kugamic Luminescent Knight, so I can make them target other things on the field, and that way my lose one turns, my macros are going to be harder for my opponent to MST and get rid of. So sometimes I just go for Kugamic Luminescent Knight right off the bat, first turn, but that's in certain situations. And then lastly, guys, I won one Stellar Knight Detaros. This is just if you have a whole bunch of Yosenjus on the field and you want to stop popping things. Rarely do I go for them, but I really couldn't find anything else I would want to run, really. But I do like him in the deck. Sometimes I have gone for him, but it's very few and far between. So guys, that is the Yosenju deck. I hope you guys all enjoyed it. It's a very, very fun deck to play. It's very straightforward, the deck. The deck, I do find you can use the side deck very well to your advantage, like I was talking before, because this is usually using wind attribute monsters. With a little bit twerking in your main deck, tinkering, in the main deck, you can take some things out in game 1, game 2, for things that are going to hurt your opponent more, like Light Imprison, Dark Imprison Mirror, Chaos Trap Hole, Mistake. I know Mistake is a card that people love running in this deck, but I find it better to be in the side deck than the main deck. I do like running Mistake, but I find it a little bit better in the sideboard instead of the main board. But that's just my personal opinion. The problem the deck has is, number 1, it doesn't have field presence all the time, and number 2, I would have to say that is the fact of the matter is, game 1, it's an amazing deck. Game 2 and 3, your opponent's going to side in, side hate. If they have like extra MSTs, Dust Tornadoes, whatever, they're going to side that stuff into the main deck. Thus, that's going to have a little bit of a problem on your stun variation, your stun orientation of the deck. But I find that with proper side decking, and if you know the deck and you play it well, you can win against your opponent even still in game 2 and game 3. But that's just my opinion on the deck, guys. But till next time, take care, have fun dueling, good luck dueling. Hope you love this deck profile, guys, and I'll see all of you next time. Seto Kaiba, I'm out. Till next time, guys. Good luck dueling to all of you.